All right, now we've finally gotten to humans, the rise of Homo sapiens, and really sort of in the history of humans, that again, I like to say, starts about 300,000 years ago, where, again, if you were to go back in a time machine and show up 300,000 years ago, I mean, the people you would meet I mean, you wouldn't be able to speak their language, but you could learn it, and for the most part, they'd be very familiar. They look very similar to modern humans. Um, but about 300,000 years ago to about 12,000 years ago, you have this Paleolithic period, right? And here you can even see sort of the early Paleolithic through the tools they used, some of these choppers and various scrapers found, a lower middle Paleolithic. In the upper, you can see really defined stone tools, be able to manipulate and again make these tools for different tasks, javelins, needles, spear throwers. And again, these might look very rudimentary, but there's actually a very defined art to breaking stones. If I ask you to go outside and grab a stone and break it up and to make a scraper with a nice perforated edge, it's not as easy as it looks, and there is an art to it. So it's a technology that was formed. But what's really going on in the sort of Paleolithic period, right? Is that the Homo sapiens are starting to compete more and more with these other hominid groups, and in fact, for a large part of the early human history, Paleolithic period, there was no the rise of Homo sapiens was never guaranteed. They were competing with other groups. Though one thing that they had is they were more adaptable, and the way their brains worked or our brains worked. We could adhere to different environmental challenges, climatic challenges, and various things. And we're increasing our technologies, and then we start to spread out. Some other traits of the Paleolithic period, particularly hunters and gatherers, smaller groups, complex. There's intra and interband interconnection. So hunter-gatherers, right, within their groups, they had to work amongst themselves, and they also had to negotiate with other groups, both other Homo sapien groups and obviously other hominid groups that existed as well. Particularly more Paleolithic traits were seasonal migrations, foraging economies. They'd move around for the seasons. No sort of permanent shelters. They'd probably build some houses, a lot of living in caves as well. They used tools, stone, bowls. One thing about the early Homo sapiens, and maybe that put us up against sort of an advantage to other hominid groups, is that we have really good uses of language, and our tongues and our ways to create and communicate were more adapted and advanced than or more developed evolutionarily than other groups. So and with better language and communication, we could plan better things and work things out further. There also, as we'll see, we have elements and examples of art, religion, and entertainment within the Paleolithic world, though we still don't really exactly know fully what it is, because we don't have any written records from the Paleolithic era, but we can kind of infer of what this Paleolithic world was all about. And again, over these groups, they think about 100,000 years ago. So first Homo sapiens existed in Africa. I mean, other hominid groups had moved out earlier, but then by about 100,000 years ago, and again, they're finding more and more evidence of maybe earlier groups of Homo sapiens moving out, but they moved out. But as we kind of can trace, and again, as more evidence comes up, primary source material in the fact of bones and carbon dated sites, right? We're kind of seeing, we're kind of making this, putting this together a little bit closer. And as they moved in, right, you can kind of see the green here is Homo erectus and other Homo groups that existed prior to Homo sapiens. They'd already settled in these areas, and you can kind of see the different waves, what they assume of coming out of Africa into ultimately Australia, to East Asia, across, and then meeting up Siberia. As we'll see later, there's also ideas that early humans were moving along coasts, not just over land. That's another area of Paleolithic world that is still getting worked out today as new evidence comes about. Actually, you might also see this dark land here. I wanted to say that, as we'll see with the transition between Paleolithic and Neolithic, is also the Ice Age, so there's more land here to cross over. But that's not to say that there was also that humans had an easy go of it. We know that there's at least three major, maybe even some more, extinction events where we have sort of bottlenecks in the Homo sapiens and the Homo, I guess all of the Homo hominid groups. About 1.2 million years ago, something happened. We don't really know, but about 55,000 hominids emerged or came through. And then about 100,000 years ago, they don't really know what might have happened, but about they estimate down to 100 or 1,000 humans, Homo sapiens, survived. Maybe this is a glacial event, but that was 100,000 years, 150,000 years ago. You can see as humans are moving about, populating the world, the world is still a dangerous place. Another one about 75,000 years ago. There's this giant eruption. Here you can kind of see the scale of it here. In land, I mean, the most recent one, I think one of these is Yellowstone, Mount St. Helens, but it was one of the largest volcanic eruptions around. Here it is today. It's now been filled in. There's actually a whole island where in the middle of this crater of Indonesia, but it's estimated about 5,000 humans survived of this. So, again, so it's not, as humans are migrating and spreading, they're going places, maybe retreating, having different issues. Disease is also still an issue, but over time, and this is the Paleolithic period, for 300,000 years, humans are spreading across the globe. And we also have evidence of them. Right? One of the very famous ones is cave art or periodontal art, which you can kind of see here. And they're found all over. The most famous ones are La Salle caves in France. I actually give it a link that you can go tour these if you want. But they're found all over. And dated, 40,000 years ago. The most recent one was found in Colombia in South America. These huge, long 1,000-foot long. Actually, these are cliff faces that have been painted. But you can kind of see, and these are, one reason we have these is they survived, right? But they also tell us a lot about this Paleolithic world and what they know. The animals are there. You can see the technologies they needed to learn how to make these pigments. Again, these are all caves, so they had to light these caves. And then, I had to climb up here and drew these. Here's a little bit of the scale of how big these caves are. So yeah, some of them think this is about hunting, recording the hunt, maybe for ensuring better hunts. Here's a very famous one, the La Salle Cave actual tour has sort of discusses this, but this might be one of the first sort of death scenes of human history, that this guy, right, maybe Bob or whatever, went out and got killed by this bull. And here, there's this little bird here. Maybe this is like the soul. We don't really know. I mean, there's a lot of speculation of what this is. But it shows us, right, that humans, one thing that makes humans is their art. Right? They produce things. They make things. So yeah, La Salle Caves, there's over nearly 2,000 figures, a lot of abstract, a lot of different interpretations for successful huntings, maybe trance dreams as well, and maybe recounting events. Maybe this is like proto-history, right? They would record their hunt every year. We don't really know, but it's very clear that all Paleolithic peoples did this, right? It was part of this Paleolithic world. Another thing that we find throughout a lot of parts of particularly Eurasia are these Venus figures. And they're found all over. Maybe part of part of early religion. Again, maybe a little talismans for maybe birth or evidence for creation of religion. But the interesting thing is a lot of these are made out of very interesting materials. Here's one of the earliest human figures. This is a mammoth bone. Here early ceramic art, early pottery. Stone, so you can kind of see Paleolithic humans were making these things, creating these things. And again, it kind of, these aren't naturally made, which is, distinguishes the human Homo sapiens from other groups. We don't have as much of this in other hominid groups. So humans, part of this Paleolithic world was the ability to make these things, spread around, set up societies, and make art, make religion as